We saw shares of drug maker Gilead Sciences fall sharply in trading yesterday. The World Health Organization accidentally published draft documents about a Chinese clinical trial that apparently showed Gilead's drug Remdesivir failed to improve the condition of coronavirus patients. But Gilead then said that the documents contained inappropriate characterizations and said that the Chinese study had been terminated early because of low enrollment. Joining us right now with more on this is former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb. He's also a CNBC contributor, and he serves on the boards of both Pfizer and Illumina. And Dr. Gottlieb, I guess this just really shows the desperation to hope that one of these treatments will work to improve things. But what are you thinking now that we've heard this back and forth?
Well, look, I don't think this changes the calculus that much on this drug. We always thought that if this drug worked, it was going to be weakly active. It wasn't a home run drug, but it could be something that could provide benefit to certain patients. We always thought that if the drug worked, it'd probably be most effective in early disease, not late disease. Here it was being tested in patients with more advanced disease. The trial only enrolled about half the targeted population of patients that it sought to enroll because they just ran out of patients in China. As the epidemic abated there, they weren't able to continue enrolling this trial. And I'll just say it's really unfortunate the way the Chinese handled this. Gilead went through great lengths to get this drug into that country to stand up these trials in the setting of their epidemic there. And the Chinese were not forthcoming about making this information available back to the company or regulators here in the U.S. that can inform decision making. So it's an unfortunate outcome after really what was, I think, reported as a heroic effort on the part of Gilead to get that drug into the country. The bottom line is we're going to have trials that read out in May. They're going to give a more definitive answer about this drug. So we're going to know very soon on whether or not this drug's working and what the treatment effect is.
In the meantime, people are looking for just about any sort of cure. I've heard all kinds of things that have been passed around, over-the-counter type of prescriptions that people are trying, even some other things that you need a prescription for that are off-label for some of these issues. I think we've probably all heard all kinds of potential cures. Yesterday, you had the president talking about how great it is that disinfectant can kill these things, and maybe we can get a shot for that. That has Lysol, the manufacturer of Lysol, now coming out and trying to say, hey, be careful, don't use our products in that way. They're not taken for oral ingestion. Not sure how serious the president was on any of this, but it does get to the point that people are so desperate, and maybe it's very important to be giving good advice, solid advice to citizens about what does and doesn't work. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, look, I think we need to speak very clearly that there's no circumstance under which you should take a disinfectant or inject a disinfectant for the treatment of anything, and certainly not the treatment of coronavirus. There's absolutely no circumstance in which that's appropriate, and it can cause death and very adverse outcomes. So people should not be doing that if that was an impression that was left by any of the reporting around comments that have been made in the last 24 hours. We're going to have safe and effective drugs for coronavirus, I believe. I think we're going to have a drug hopefully by the fall. There's a lot of promising products in development, but there's no product right now that's been proven to be safe and effective against the virus. And there's really no product that's shown enough promise that I think you would want to use it outside of clinical trials, even in an off-label fashion. I think we still have to collect data on the products that we think might have promise here. Remdesivir is one of them. Some people still believe hydroxychloroquine might have a benefit. The data is very mixed there. There really is no definitive data that would suggest that it's having a treatment effect, but doctors are still using it in some hospitals because the drug's available. But all of these drugs should be examined under protocols that allow us to collect information right now because there's no home run here. There's nothing that's showing such extreme promise that it should be used outside of a protocol.
Hey, Doctor, your successor, Stephen Hahn, the current commissioner of the FDA, was asked about President Trump's comments last night on CNN about injecting, for example, things like Lysol, which now they've come out and tried to clearly push back on. He was asked about that directly and effectively told people to call their doctor. What was your reaction watching that?
Well, look, I think when these kinds of issues come up, we shouldn't do anything that would try to normalize them or even leave any doubt that that perhaps there's any kernel of credibility or truth to doing something like ingesting bleach or injecting bleach as a treatment for anything. So I think it's just important to speak plainly, speak forcefully about these things, and speak very clearly. There's no circumstance in which you should ingest or inject any kind of disinfectant or bleach for the treatment of anything, and certainly not for the treatment of coronavirus. I think that just needs to be said very clearly.
No doubt. Scott, is there anything to a UV light catheter? Does that exist? I mean, I know that there's other ways of using radiation through catheters and things. Is there anything to that any that would make any sense in any context? Is there such a thing?
No, there's no indication by which you would use UV light to treat both either externally or internally a virus or bacteria. The only thing I could think of is that someone might have alluded to extracorporeal blood purification, where there is some precedent for filtering the blood in a setting of, for example, extreme sepsis. It was done in Ebola. But and we do use UV light to irradiate or to treat blood products to help make sure that they don't transfer viruses when you're purifying blood products externally. But there's absolutely no circumstance in which you'd use ultraviolet light internally in a patient to do anything, let alone treat an infectious disease.
Okay.
Dr. Gottlieb, is there anything that you yourself have thought, okay, maybe I should keep this around, whether it's a Z-Pack, whether it's, I've heard over-the-counter stuff that I don't know if I want to repeat it on air, because every time you hear about one of these things, there's a run on it, and you can't find it anywhere.
Not right now. I mean, there's really nothing that's shown to be effective and have direct activity against the virus in a way that I recommend people keep it on hand and use it either as a prophylaxis or as a treatment if they think they have early disease. I think the best thing we can do right now is just good supportive care. And, we're learning more about how to treat these patients effectively. So doctors in the hospital are doing a better job with high-flow oxygen, with anticoagulation, thinning blood, because a lot of patients were getting into trouble with blood clots, with other kinds of drugs that arrest some of the overwhelming immune response that patients get in response to the virus. And so we're learning a lot about how to treat patients with this disease. So we're going to see outcomes, I think, improve over time.